Let's get started. Who we got first here, Johnny? Of course, let's not forget we have Johnny in the production booth in the background. Troy Franklin. I am excited about this pick. Obviously, round 4, second pick in the fourth round for the Denver Broncos. Teammate of Bo Nix, the 15th selection of the same draft class. What's your thoughts, Pez?
My immediate thing with Troy Franklin is he could potentially be a really good steal, just simply because he's, like you said, he's going to the Broncos with Bo Nix, and we've seen it over these last couple of years. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Who's the other tandem who teamed up back together? You have Tua and Waddle.
Stroud have one of his,
No, so Stroud, in a way, Stroud is kind of there because he asked the Texans staff to draft Tank Dell.
Yes.
For whatever reason, I don't know the reasoning behind it, but he wanted Tank Dell on the team, and when he got drafted by the Texans, the first thing he said was, "Can you go and get Tank Dell when you think it's the right time?" But you've got Jamar with Joe Burrow, and you've seen the success with wide receivers joining their college quarterbacks because of that rapport they've had for the years. I think Bo Nix and Troy Franklin would have only had the 2 years because Bo Nix transferred, didn't he? So that's the first thing that stands out to me, where you could get an absolute, when it comes to drafting, you could get an absolute steal with Troy Franklin in deeper leagues. I don't think he's probably not viable until you see it on the field in a smaller league, but say the OrkneyBowl, I feel like, because it's quite a deep league with all the different elements, he could be an absolute steal in the later rounds. What I do think everyone needs to keep an eye on.
I agree 100% to what you were saying. It's one of those guys that I think that if he would have been drafted by, say, the Carolina Panthers, not many people would care about Troy Franklin. However, being drafted with his college teammate and seeing the numbers they put up at the college rank, people get excited. As you said, we have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, which is the highlights, but you also have Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, which, I know he's a running back, but still successful. You have Tua and Jalen Waddle, Jalen Hurts, and Devontae Smith. Those are all college teammates, and you can see big production with those guys. One thing I do like, about Franklin, he's got the height, 6'2", but he does seem to be a bit on the smallish size at 175 pounds. I'm wondering if he's going to be able to push off the line of scrimmage like he needs to in order to be successful at the next level. But I'm excited about the guy. I have drafted him in many leagues as a flyer. So,
he's 100% a flyer. Like I said, the OrkneyBowl is quite a deep, intense competition with a lot of experienced players who are in that league. So he might not be so much of a steal, but if you could get him later on when you basically much got your roster sorted out, I don't see the reason why you couldn't even, maybe if you've got all the key pieces you need in your team, he could be perfect to actually hit earlier than what people are thinking, because everyone will probably have him on their radar at a certain round. But then you probably want to try and maybe guesstimate. If your team's set, don't worry about ADP and get caught up with all that. He's the type of player who you could probably jump early solely because of that Bo Nix, him connection. You chuck in Sean Payton. If it all works out the way we think it's going to work out with Bo Nix as the starter, we've seen it with the Saints, with Sean Payton, with Drew Brees, Michael Thomas. He finds a connection he likes. He'll drain every possible outcome from that connection.
Tom Brady made a living out of that with his wide receivers.
Yeah, you look at it. You look at Troy Franklin's numbers as well. He's only in college for 3 years. His first year was probably what you'd expect in your first year. Second year, he went from 18 receptions to 61 receptions, 209 yards to 891 yards, and I think that would have been Bo Nix's first year, and then the year after. So we're talking about that chemistry is the jump from second year to third year. 81 receptions is last year, so 20 plus receptions, and I'll do quick maths in my head. About 500 more yards, average yard 17.1 per reception, 14 touched. He just had a very quiet first year and then just exploded his last 2 years. So people will be worried about that because, like we do in fantasy, we big brain everything we think, but don't look at ADP, don't look at anything else. Just look at the simple factors of what's worked in these last couple of years, especially when it comes to fantasy. Like you said, Etienne and Trevor Lawrence is probably one of the biggest ones, really. Like the production he's made because they know each other so well. These two have shown 2 years, and I know it's college to the NFL, but these two have shown 2 years of working together that the production's just only gone up. So I could definitely see him.
Every year it seems that a third day wide receiver has higher production than anyone ever expected. And if I'm going to put money down on a 4th, 5th, or 6th, 7th round draft pick, I think Troy Franklin is a safe bet. I think you're right. Big production in the senior year. And, he played with a first round draft pick QB. So you see that if he has the talent, he can produce. So we'll see. I am a bit concerned with his size, though. He does seem to be a bit small on that. And he doesn't have blazing speed at, I think, 4.41 in the 40, which is not bad.
Yeah, I think size, we're coming to a point in the league now where you're starting to see some of these smaller framed guys actually not being that concerned. To be honest, one thing I didn't look into is injury history. If it doesn't look like he really had any injury history in college.
He played every game that he could in the college level.
Yeah, because like you said, there is 40. It's higher end. It's not great. He didn't really test that well, but for me, what I remember seeing highlights of him, watching him compared to his testing are two different things, and by this point, testing numbers are irrelevant. They're just irrelevant. Look at Marvin Harrison Jr. He just didn't test because was it Jamar Chase or Jamar Chase didn't test, and look at what happened with Jamar Chase's first year. He got slagged off all preseason, and then detonated over everyone's face. You know what I mean? So I won't be. The frame wouldn't concern me. Where you're realistically going to be drafting him, especially the OrkneyBowl, you've got to think of defensive players. Last year we saw a lot of guys go, probably in my opinion, too high on defensive players because not a lot of people understand that, the whole concept of IDP in fantasy and how it truly works. They kind of go off big name. So you're not drafting this guy in a position where you almost need risk to a reward. It's almost like a risk, and you can just let him go if he's nothing.
I agree. Yeah, so I think you and I both agree with Troy Franklin's prospects. Take him as a solid flyer, late in the late rounds, of course. If you have your starters already selected, go for it. I think he will certainly produce as a 4th wide receiver, even in his rookie year. So
EW Kicks makes a really good point. because they've got Noel Judy, Tim Patrick, like they're so high on him for some reason, but the injuries he's had, I can't see him being a factor. Mims, you don't know whether Sean Payton likes him or doesn't like him. He's always like mixed messages with him, so there is like real thing there that Franklin could be wide receiver 2, and also who's the wide receiver 1? His name, I can't think of it. Cortland Sutton. Yeah, and even him. There's talk about him being a bit like
being
unhappy.
traded all the time. Every year he's going to be traded.
Yeah, traded. I think he got upset over that, and then I think his contract. So you could get an absolute bargain, as like you said, at your wide receiver 4 position.
I've been Cortland Sutton brings he's so frustrating, but so a big buy for Troy Franklin.